In Chapter 3 of the original 1881 Pinocchio, the puppet picks up a mallet and kills the talking cricket. He crushes the cricket against a wall until it stops moving. This is the story most of the world has never actually read. It presents a Pinocchio who is cruel, selfish, and deliberately manipulative, and a narrative that ends with him hanging lifeless from a tree. Disney did not adapt Collodi's tale. They erased it. The killing was only the beginning. Carlo Collodi, born Carlo Lorenzini, first introduced Pinocchio not as a book, but as a serialized tale in the pages of Giornale per i Bambini, Italy's pioneering children's newspaper. The story's debut came on July 7, 1881, under the title La storia di un burattino, the story of a puppet. Each week, young readers encountered new episodes, accompanied by stark illustrations that left little to the imagination. The serialized format shaped the narrative's relentless pace and harsh tone, forcing Collodi to keep readers hooked through shock, suspense, and sudden violence. By February 1883, the full saga appeared in book form as Les Aventures de Pinocchio, with Enrico Mazzanti's woodcut drawings capturing the puppet's wild-eyed defiance. The most authoritative modern edition, curated by Ornella Castellani Polidori in 1983, preserves not only the original text, but facsimiles of Collodi's own handwritten alternate ending, where Pinocchio's story closes not in redemption, but in death. The evidence is clear. This was never a gentle fairy tale. It was a warning. Pinocchio's first act of violence arrives with a jolt. In the third chapter of Collodi's original, the talking cricket appears not as a cheerful companion, but as a voice of reason, warning Pinocchio that defiance and idleness will end in ruin. Pinocchio's response is laughter. He seizes a wooden mallet and strikes the cricket 4 times, each blow described as violent. The text is blunt. It describes Pinocchio bursting out laughing, seizing a wooden mallet, and striking the cricket 4 violent blows, leaving it stiff against the wall. The scene is brutal. The narrative offers no comfort, no accidental slip, only a puppet who kills because he is annoyed. There is no remorse, no lesson learned. The cricket's death is swift and final, the body left cold on the wall. Collodi's language is clinical, almost cold, as if to underline the certainty of consequence. This is not a world of magical redemption, but one where cruelty is met with silence, and the moral voice can be snuffed out in an instant. Pinocchio's journey unfolds as a relentless cycle of punishment, where every misstep invites another blow. After killing the cricket, the consequences only intensify. In the serialized chapters, Pinocchio is arrested by the Carabinieri, not for his own crimes, but because he frames Geppetto, his creator, leading to Geppetto's imprisonment. The law in Collodi's world is arbitrary, often punishing the innocent and letting the guilty slip away. Pinocchio himself is soon seized by the police, humiliated, and thrown out onto the street, left to fend for himself. The violence escalates with the arrival of the fox and the cat, tricksters who offer friendship but deliver betrayal. They lure Pinocchio with promises of riches, then rob him, beat him, and finally, in a chilling scene, string him up by the neck from an oak tree. The text describes him hanging, his body limp, abandoned in the dark. This was not a brief scare, but the intended end, a puppet left to die as a warning. The world of Collodi's Pinocchio is ruled by suffering, where each act of selfishness is met with a harsher response, and mercy is nowhere to be found. The original serialized ending of Pinocchio left no room for mercy. In November 1881, Collodi's story reached its intended conclusion with a scene that stunned young readers. Pinocchio was strung up by the neck from an oak tree, left to die at the hands of the fox and the cat. The facsimile of Collodi's handwritten manuscript, preserved in the 1983 Polidori edition, captures the stark finality of this moment. In his own words, Pinocchio, exhausted and defeated, mutters peste, a curse of disgust, then gives the rope a shake and lets himself dangle like a dead chicken. There is no rescue, no magical intervention. The language is abrupt and unforgiving. The narrative voice, coldly moralistic. Pinocchio's death on the gallows was meant as a terminal warning, a puppet who refuses to learn punished with the ultimate consequence. The facsimile itself is chaotic, ink scrawled over revisions, but the intent is unmistakable. This was not a fable about transformation or hope. It was a story that ended with a child's body swinging in the darkness, a lesson written in suffering, not redemption. The public's reaction to Pinocchio's hanging was immediate and intense. Letters poured into the offices of Giornale per I Bambini, many from children who were shocked and distraught by the puppet's grim fate. The editor, recognizing the uproar, personally approached Collodi and urged him to continue the story. On February 16, 1882, new installments resumed, bringing Pinocchio back from the dead. This editorial intervention did more than revive a fictional character. It forced a pivot in the narrative itself. The fairy with turquoise hair entered the story, not as a whimsical guardian, but as a rescuer who literally cuts Pinocchio down from the gallows, breathing life into a world that had offered none. The tale shifted from relentless punishment to the possibility of redemption, but only after overwhelming pressure from readers and the magazine's editorial staff. By February 1883, the full story appeared in book form, now ending with Pinocchio's transformation into a real boy. The precedent was set. The story of Pinocchio could be changed, softened, and reimagined to suit the demands of its audience. What began as a brutal warning was now on a path towards something far more forgiving. Disney's 1940 adaptation dismantles the punishing framework of Collodi's tale and reconstructs the story from the ground up. Jiminy Cricket, once a murdered nuisance, reappears as Pinocchio's cheerful guide, a conscience assigned by the Blue Fairy, not silenced by violence. The film's Pleasure Island sequence turns brutal punishment into a surreal adventure. Boys are tempted and transformed into donkeys, but the horror is softened, and Pinocchio escapes with only a tail and ears. The infamous hanging vanishes. The fox and cat become bumbling tricksters, never deadly. Instead of a world ruled by suffering, Disney's climax centers on rescue and redemption. Pinocchio risks everything to save Geppetto from Monstro the whale, and self-sacrifice, not obedience through pain, earns his transformation into a real boy. The message is reversed. Where Collodi demanded suffering before forgiveness, Disney offers hope, empathy, and the belief that even the most wayward child can be saved. Disney's choice to recast Pinocchio as an innocent soul was not just a creative whim, but a reflection of changing ideas about childhood and morality. In Collodi's 19th century Italy, stories for children were blunt instruments of discipline. The didactic tradition demanded that young readers be frightened into obedience, with tales steeped in punishment and fear. By the time Walt Disney's studio took on the story in the late 1930s, the American view of childhood had shifted. The rise of progressive education and child psychology, influenced by thinkers like John Dewey and Arnold Gissel, encouraged empathy and nurture over fear. Disney's films targeted families seeking reassurance after years of economic hardship, offering stories where hope triumphed over suffering. The studio's commercial success depended on characters who could inspire affection and trust, not dread. In this climate, Pinocchio's journey became less about paying for his sins and more about discovering his own capacity for goodness. Two visions of childhood now stand face to face. Collodi's Pinocchio exists in a world where every misdeed is met with pain, where cruelty is punished not in metaphor, but in flesh and blood. The lesson is harsh. Goodness, if it comes at all, is hammered out through suffering, and those who refuse to learn may not survive the lesson. Disney's Pinocchio, by contrast, is granted the benefit of the doubt. His mistakes are forgiven, his nature assumed to be innocent, his redemption earned through acts of courage and love, rather than fear. The question lingers, unresolved. Does true morality come from enduring the consequences of our worst impulses, or from the belief that even the most wayward soul deserves another chance? The story of Pinocchio, in all its forms, refuses to let us look away from that divide. Today, the world embraces Pinocchio as a symbol of innocence, yet Collodi's puppet was born from cruelty and consequence, a test of whether redemption is earned or given. The story we choose reveals what we believe about childhood, morality, and the cost of transformation. What version do we need now?